everyone. The Lapeer Community School Board of Education meeting is now called to order. We will begin with a pledge of allegiance. Dr. Watson, would you please lead us through the pledge?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. I'm going to turn it over to you, Superintendent Laundrie.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a rather, I'm turning this off. I don't know what's going on. Do we know what's going on? Maybe it's not. A rather unfortunate announcement to make this evening. We recently shared a communication with district families. We had one of our Lynch first graders unfortunately die in an auto accident. We gotta turn these off. So everyone, please turn your microphone off. I don't know what's going on. Thank you. The student's name is Jamison Pressey, as I mentioned, first grader at Lynch Elementary School. Several of us, members of the Colt team, had the opportunity to meet with the Lynch staff today in preparation for what will be a difficult day tomorrow with our students and preparing the necessary supports that are going to be needed for our staff and for our youngsters at Lynch. This is obviously a very tragic thing. We just ask that everyone here keep the Pressey family in your thoughts and in your prayers. This is not the first time this has happened, at least in my time as superintendent. It never gets any easier when you, especially talking about a student this young, it's a terribly tragic thing. So I would invite everyone here and those watching to just let's have a moment of silence and keep Jamison Pressey in our prayers in a moment of silence. Turn the whole thing off. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Laundrie. So with that, this evening, we also are going to make an adjustment to our agenda. So if we are going to make a motion this evening to move the presentation this evening before public comment. So if I could get a motion from Okay. I have the motion and the support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. McKenna? Aye. Mrs. Lamar?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Lipcott? Sorry. Ms. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, so with that, I'll hand it over to you for the
Thank you, Madam President. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Ms. Donna Hanson to give us our annual 2024 audit report for Plant Moran. Donna,
Thank you.
the floor is yours.
Okay, no microphone.
Or Jack.
I will sing loudly, that's fine. Appreciate your time on the agenda tonight and appreciate you moving me too as well. The board has received the final copies of the 3 deliverables from the audit, the basic financial statements, the federal programs audit, and the end of audit communication to the Board of Education. We did cover these drafts in detail, the drafts of the reports with the Finance and Ops Committee towards the end of October, and answered questions at that time. Can tell you that the final copies did not change from that Finance and Ops Committee. Just some summary items from the audit results. We have issued an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion that is the highest form of assurance that we provide, that the financial statements are fairly presented, free of material misstatement, and can be relied upon. The single audit, we have also issued an unmodified opinion. The major program that was tested this year was the Education Stabilization Funds. This would be the ESSER dollars. really kind of the tail end of those ESSER dollars are to be spent. Just some highlights from the year. 2023 was the first year, or the 2023 Capital Projects Fund, this is the first year that there was some substantial expenditures. That bond fund was approved by the community in 2023, and now it is being spent. Just wanted to note the fact that, in addition to the dollars that are audited in that fund, we also audit for compliance, and that's compliance that allowable costs are only being spent with those dollars, as well as that they are in accordance with the ballot language that the community did approve, and there's other tests such as bidding and making sure the district is following all of the rules and laws related to bid testing. We also noted too on the arbitrage liability. This is something that the business office will continue to monitor through the duration of spending down these bond dollars. This is it's called an arbitrage rebate liability. When interest rates tick up and their earnings off of the proceeds from the bond funds may be more than the interest rate that is being paid for on those bonds, there is a potential liability. And so there was a calculation that was performed this year. It will be performed each year, and it's something that will just have to be on the radar of the business office. So we'll continue to monitor that as well. Just noted also the pandemic relief funds, all of those dollars were spent by September 30th, 2024. That was the end date, and those final reports have been filed. And just to comment, there is more detail on this in the end of audit correspondence to the board, but the past several years, and we'll see this in a slide, the district has seen an increase, substantial increases up until June 30th, 2024 with per pupil funding. We really see that moderating now back to pre-pandemic thresholds really, and stabilizing really that level of increases each year. And speaking again of the end of audit communications, there are several items in that communication. One of those in particular is, it does define the responsibilities we have as the district's auditors, as well as the responsibility of the district in the internal control processes and procedures that are in place, and our assessment of those procedures, and responsibilities related to the financial statements of the district. Now we'll touch on some numbers here, highlighting the general fund, which is the primary operating fund of the district. This is as of June 30th, 2024. This slide depicts the general fund balance sheet, assets and liabilities. On the asset side, the district had assets of around $17.7 million at June 30th, 2024, and the primary piece of that asset was in the receivable category, which would be primarily the state aid payments the district is due to receive through the summer. Cash was around $4.5 million at June 30th, and so those are the two key components of assets of the district. Liabilities totaled $7.4 million approximately, and the largest portion related to salaries and contracts payable, so paying off the contracts for the year through the summer months. Moving to revenue, so general fund revenue for the year 2024 totaled approximately $65.2 million. The largest portion of that revenue comes from state sources. That would be the state aid the district receives at 79% of the funding. That bucket also includes the categorical funding and at-risk dollars, those types of things that the district receives from the state as well. Non-homestead property taxes make up the largest portion of the local source revenue, around 14%. And then here, depicted in orange, is the federal grant dollars, around 7%. And of that $4.7 million of federal dollars, around 3.3 of that stemmed from the ESSER grant. This graph shows a historical analysis of the pupil count as well as the foundation allowance per pupil each year. Looking first at the pupil count, that would be at the bottom, the orange highlight there. You can see over time, you're seeing a drop in the number of pupils. You're seeing that in many districts, and it's not only stemming from a lack of 100% rebound from the pandemic, but also due to just the birth rate decline in the state, as well as there are other alternatives, more alternatives, whether it's charters or private schools that are competitive essentially with public education. Over this period of time from 2019 to 2024, there was a drop of approximately 670 students during that time frame. At the same time, over the blue line that you see at the top, that shows the per pupil funding. And as I mentioned, there were nice increases in funding from 2021 to 2024, around $500 per pupil each year. Prior to that, though, if you received $50 or $75, I mean, that was what the experience was, and we do envision, depending on the state, the stability of the state aid fund at the state level, looking to probably see that moderate a bit more. And this graph depicts the COVID-19 relief funding, all of the various grants that the district received. So total awarded since 2020 through September 30th, 2024 was approximately $9.5 million. And at June 30th, there were still some dollars of the ESSER fund to be spent again, which were spent before the deadline of September 30th, 2024. So this graph will go away because all those dollars are spent. Okay, moving over to general fund expenditures and other financing uses. So total expenditures for the district was approximately $62.5 million. And this graph depicts those expenditures by function. So kind of look at this more like where those dollars were spent. The largest portion of dollars spent were in direct classroom instruction. So that would be the largest, 4%. In addition, support services, there is an instruction component there as well. That was 38% of the dollars. And then athletics, community service, and capital outlay round out the balance. This graph also shows general fund expenditures for the past 3 years, and it depicts it by object, which means what those dollars were spent on. So that would be salaries and fringes, which is the largest component of the dollars, where the dollars were spent. So around $50.4 million were spent on salaries and fringes. Purchase services would be the next in line, and substitutes are included in there, and purchase services as well. So when you look at that bar graph, it's people that those dollars are being spent on. And revenues exceeded expenditures for the year, and the total difference there, what was added to fund balance, was approximately $2.7 million. So at June 30th, 2024, fund balance was approximately $10.3 million for the year. And this graph shows a 3-year history of fund balance. So you see that there has been additions to fund balance for the 3-year period. Fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, this is a measurement that districts do compare each other with at statewide. Fund balance as a percentage of expenditures at the end of the year was around 16.5%. That equates to around 8.5 weeks of operations for the district. In comparison, the state average at June 30th, 2023, which is the most recent compiled data, was around 22%, and that covers around 11 weeks of operations. What is highlighted in the bar graph for 2024 is also an orange segregation there, and that is assigned fund balance. And what that represents is the planned use of fund balance based on the board-approved budget So to recap, we have issued an unmodified opinion. That's good news. And we do want to acknowledge Erica Ingalls and Mark Rader and the entire business office and the time they worked to prepare for the auditors to come out and the courtesy that is extended to us, to myself and our team in working with them and working through the audit each year. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from anyone? Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, that concludes our presentations for this evening. So I do have a comment card for tonight. So a board meeting is a meeting of school district business held in public. It is not a public meeting. The board is not going to respond to those making public comment, but will direct the superintendent to follow up with the presenters. 30 minutes is set aside for public comment, so each presenter is being asked to keep their comments brief. The board does not comment in public on any student or employee and asks the presenter to be respectful of any person they comment about. Laura McCauley.
I do understand that you won't answer questions tonight, but I really just wanted to come to bring up the fact that there is a great amount of concern within a large group of parents about the implementation of Raptor in January. We were aware that there will be a meeting next week with Mr. Joe Wood, and we'll obviously bring our more specific concerns up then. But we just are a little concerned that maybe the proper parties might not be at this meeting. We inquired and we didn't get very much of an answer, so we really would appreciate that, you know, the proper authorities or whoever needs to be there is there, because we are really running out of time to express our concerns before this is going to be implemented. A lot of us feel like this has really kind of been slid under the radar. A lot of people are not aware of it and don't know a lot about it, and we would like our concerns addressed, you know, before it's too late and before this is already put into place, especially with it being in the middle of the school year, when you don't have much option to make different choices. You know, if it was at the beginning of the year and we knew ahead of time, we could have made decisions to do different things with our kids. Being in the middle of the year, it's much tougher for us to do that. So we would just appreciate, you know, that you are aware and that hopefully more of the appropriate people can be there to hear our concerns next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the only current cards that I have for tonight for public comment.
I wasn't aware that I needed to make a card, but I do need to make a statement because I am the one that put out a post on the pier and it kind of went viral and we were picked up by the news, but these are some of the statements from the parents. I have hundreds of them in my email. People are very concerned with the amount of bullying that is taking place in schools. I'm sure you are all well aware that I am Ailey Pilarski's aunt, and there was 2 children in your school that tried to commit suicide last week. Other than the superintendent, we haven't had much communication with anybody in the school. The principal actually drove by and flipped us off while we were rallying. But this is a huge concern, and there are many, many people that are talking about pulling the kids from the school district, and I really don't blame them, along with the issue with the Raptor system. You guys gotta do better. Like, we have not had anybody really other than the superintendent who has, from what I heard from Lisa and Jeff, has been making plans to help the kids feel safer in school, but this is a huge problem. And it's gonna get bigger, because I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop the talking to the reporters, and the news is not going to let up anytime soon. These are children's lives that are at stake. And I just think that you guys need to actually act like it matters. Thank you.
So I'd like to say something as well. I didn't know about the comment card. It's my first meeting, so I'm a little nervous. I'm sorry. My name is Tiffany Lamson. I'm a special needs small child in the school district. He is biracial. I have a biracial daughter starting in the school next year. you allow some of these children to walk around and call each other names that we don't allow in our household as parents. And we're supposed to entrust our children's lives in your hands, in the school's hands, not yours specifically, but the teachers and the people around them. My son was nonverbal until he was 2.5, and I credit that to the ECSE program. They're absolutely amazing. But I worry about him as he gets older. He has poor communication. He struggles to tell people when things are going on. So if there's nobody there to help my child, and there's nobody watching these children, then who's gonna stop the child bullying a child who can't speak up for themselves? I had a choice 4 years ago when I had my son of where to live. His father is not from Lapeer County. He came from Genesee County. And I specifically had begged him, give Lapeer a shot, move to Lapeer. It's not as bad as you think. And unfortunately, the community hasn't been as welcoming to him as they should have been. He's a great man. He works for a great business in Lapeer, has for years. And I just want to make sure that our children are protected. I came to speak up for all the children who can't speak up for themselves. Because eventually my son's going to be older and he's going to be with these other kids. Even though he's bigger and he seems scary at times, he's really not. There's always going to be a bigger kid than him, just like everyone else's children. And I just like the rest of the community, want some answers. I want to make sure my children are protected the same way yours would be if they were in the classroom together. Thank you.
Tiffany, can you spell your last name for me?
Yes, it's Lamb as a boy and then SON.
And ma'am, what's your name?
Naomi Johnson, Nyomi.
So if you guys, if you both wouldn't mind, there's comment cards
Yeah,
in the
you want me to
back.
fill it out?
If you could fill it out, then I definitely, every time, the superintendent will follow up after every meeting
Thank you.
with every person that comments. So that helps us with that follow-up work. I appreciate that. Okay, I think that's it for comments this evening. We will move on to our report section. So we will start with Teaching, Learning, and Technology Committee. So Mrs. LeVar, would you please share the committee report?
Yes, I will, Madam President. We met on November 14th at 3:30. All of us present were myself, Jamie Hooper, and Tim Lipka, and Matt Wandry, Michelle Bradford, Wyatt Stevens, and Mary Moss. Meeting was called to order at 3:49 via Zoom. We discussed the 5-6 grade schedule. Michelle and Wyatt reviewed the new proposed 5-6 grade schedule, which now includes a Block A and a Block B scheduling format. This allows for 5th and 6th grade students to alternate weekly on an A and B block schedule for more electives. These blocks will include 90 minutes of ELA and math and 45 minutes of science, social studies, multi-systems of support, and rotating A-B elective blocks. New course proposals. Michelle explained new upcoming courses that will give students more optional learning experiences. These electives include world cultures for 7th-8th grade and PE electives including athletic theory and technique and team sports, female athletic enhancement for 9th through 12th grades, and yoga and fitness for 10th through 12th grades. These courses will require board approval. Additional electives offered for virtual students include elementary Spanish, which does not require board approval. Unarchived electives for the 2025-2026 school year. Unarchived electives will include STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, classes at the K-4 level, 5-6 level, and 7-8 level. In addition, teen survival skills, 3D art, introduction to American film study, and music appreciation will be added at the 7-8 grade level. Lastly, 9th through 12th grade level additions include American Sign Language and economics and personal finance. The meeting adjourned at 4:28 p.m.
Any comments or questions? My one question is that I have when the 5th, 6th grade schedule, we're still doing year-round and traditional calendar, I would call it. And are they going to both follow the same type of format?
Yes, 5-6 will follow the same format as a 5-6 building.
Yeah, like the block that you're talking about here, that block schedule and so forth. Anybody else have any questions or comments? will have the policy committee. Dr. Novak, would you please share us the policy committee report?
Yes, the policy committee met on November 15th at 1 o'clock via Zoom. Committee members were myself and Jamie Hofer. Members absent were Craig Watson. Others attending Matt Wandry, Kim Seeferly, Erica Ingalls, and Mary Moss. We discussed policy 7455, accounting systems for fixed assets. Recommended changes include an increase in the amount of an item to be considered a fixed asset and also to bring this policy in alignment with current GASB reporting requirements. Discussion took place regarding this change. It was determined that further discussion will take place before this is placed on a board agenda for full board approval. Policy NAG 5500, Student Code of Conduct. Currently, the concepts of discipline and student conduct are spread out over Policy 5500 and Policy 5600. We are recommending eliminating Policy 5600 and placing all content regarding philosophy without edits into Policy 5500. This will replace the outdated previous introduction to the policy. The AG, Administrative Guidelines, is the primary guidance document for addressing student discipline. We have added a statement here clarifying that in accordance with the law, the use of corporal punishment is prohibited. Policy 5600, student discipline, removal of this policy. All of this content will be added to Policy 5500 to provide philosophy for student code of conduct. Policy 5630, corporal punishment, removal of the policy. Currently, this policy articulates the law prohibiting the use of corporal punishment. This policy also provides some clarifying language regarding the appropriate use of force. However, the appropriate use of force descriptions are provided in much greater detail in Policy 5630.01, seclusion and restraint. It is recommended to remove this policy and leave the definitions in other existing policies. Policy 5630.01, seclusion and restraint. Additional clarity has been added to make it clear these policies address school personnel which do not include law enforcement officers. Additionally, references have been added to required forms that must be completed when seclusion and restraint are used. It was the consensus of the committee to recommend moving board policies 5500, 5600, 5630, and 5630.01 forward for the first reading at tonight's board meeting. The meeting adjourned at 1:25 p.m.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Thank you, Dr. Novak. And the last report will be finance and operations. Dr. Watson, will you please share the committee report?
November 25th, we had a Zoom at 12:30. Members present, myself, Summer Putnam, Lisa Novak, others attending, Matt Wandry, Eric Ingalls, Mark Rader, Brian Batter, Julia Peruski from Barton-Mello, and Mary Moss. We called the meeting to order at 12:30. We discussed bid pack number 6, pack addition and renovations. Barton-Mello recommends the following for bid package 6, addition and renovations. Simone Construction Services for concrete for an amount not to exceed $328,560. Rosati Mason Contractors for masonry, including bid alternates A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $538,635. Men of Steel for structural steel for an amount not to exceed $321,945. E&L Construction Group for general trades, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $593,569. String Roofing and Sheet Metal LLC for roofing for an amount not to exceed $192,575. Hewitt Company for aluminum entrances, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $252,900. Amex Painting Inc. for painting for an amount not to exceed $33,285. Integrity Interiors Inc. for gypsum and acoustical ceilings, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $579,100. Omega Floors for flooring, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $207,000. Beck Studios Inc. for theater stage equipment for an amount not to exceed $386,129. Irwin Seating Company for fixed auditorium seating for an amount not to exceed $238,457. SD Mechanical Services, Inc. for mechanical, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for amount not to exceed $1,625,389. EL Electrical Contracting, Inc. for electrical, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $1,696,750. Advanced Lighting and Sound for performance audio and video systems for an amount not to exceed $640,000. Cordis Brothers Trucking and Excavating for site work for an amount not to exceed $1,886,460. TG Priest LLC for asphalt for a total amount not to exceed $161,500. And Aztec Asphalt for a total amount not to exceed $485,300 for a grand total award amount not to exceed $10,167,554. And it was the consensus of our committee to recommend full board approval tonight. And we adjourned at 1 o'clock.
Any comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Watson. So that concludes our reports for this evening. We will head into our action items. Our first is a consent grouping, approval of minutes of the November 6, 2024 regular meeting, the first reading of board policies, policy 500, student code of conduct, policy 5600, student discipline, removal of the policy, policy 5630, corporal punishment, removal of policy, policy 5630.01, seclusion and restraint. Then we have second reading and adoption of board policies, policy 1240, evaluation of superintendent, policy 1420, school administrator evaluation, removal of policy, policy 3220, professional staff evaluation, and policy 3230, school administration evaluation and policy. Are there any consent grouping items anybody wishes to have removed? Okay, I'm hearing none. Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to read the minutes away and the consent agenda items be approved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. Lamar?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Ms. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. And then our second action item is the bid pack number 6, the pack addition and renovations.
I'll make a motion that the bid package 6, we're going through the open, okay. High school performing arts addition and renovations be awarded to Simone Construction Services for concrete for an amount not to exceed $328,560. Rosati Mason Contractors for masonry for an amount not to exceed $498,746. Men of Steel for structural steel for an amount not to exceed $321,945. E&L Construction Group for general trades for an amount not to exceed $554,569. Strong Roofing and Sheet Metal LLC for roofing for an amount not to exceed $192,575. Hewitt Company for aluminum entrances for an amount not to exceed $223,000. AMX Painting for painting for an amount not to exceed $33,285.
We'll highlight it.
Just highlight it.
Okay. Just highlight the end, the total?
Yeah.
Okay. Where was I now? Integrity Interiors for gypsum and acoustical ceilings for an amount not to exceed $558,490. Omega Floors for flooring for an amount not to exceed $192,000. Beck Studios Incorporated for theater stage equipment for an amount not to exceed $386,129. Irwin Seating Company for fixed auditorium seating for an amount not to exceed $238,457. SD Mechanical Services for mechanical for an amount not to exceed $1,458,633. EL Electrical Contracting for electrical for an amount not to exceed $1,663,750. Advanced Lighting and Sound for performance audio and video systems for an amount not to exceed $640,000. Cordis Brothers Trucking and Excavating for site work for an amount not to exceed $1,886,460. TG Freeze LLC for asphalt for a total amount not to exceed $161,500. And Aztec Asphalt for a total not to exceed $485,300 for a total award amount not to exceed $10,167,554.
So just one clarification, thanks Lisa, now that you have read that. There are a few numbers in the motion that Lisa just read that are different from our committee report. So let's double check which we should be doing. The one that the motion says, Lisa,
Double check.
or the one the committee said?
There was an update. There was an update after when we accepted the alternate.
Oh, okay, so the
To
motion.
take it down to 9 or up to 10?
Up to 10. So Craig's was right.
Craig's was accurate. The motion numbers are wrong.
Yeah,
So the motion should be based on the committee report numbers.
correct.
Correct. So this is what this is void. Okay.
So should I read this again? Okay.
Yes.
Can we just read
No,
the,
I said it once wrong.
We can refer to.
I'll do it. I'll do it again. It's fine. You want to do it? It's
Yeah,
not right. You
okay.
wanna do it. Okay.
I
guess
do
what?
apologize for that, Lisa, but you're getting your good reading in tonight.
Thank goodness I teach accounting, okay guys? Alright, I can do this. Okay, so I'm amending my motion to include, Fire Mallow recommends the following for bid package 6, additions and renovations. Maybe I'll get the names right this time. Simone Construction for concrete for an amount not to exceed $328,560. Rosati Mason Contractors for masonry, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $538,635. Men of Steel for structural steel for an amount not to exceed $321,945. E&L Construction Group for general trades, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $593,569. Strong Roofing and Sheet Metal LLC for roofing for an amount not to exceed $192,575. Hewitt Company for aluminum entrances, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $252,900. AMMAX Painting for an amount not to exceed $33,285. Integrity Interiors Incorporated for gypsum and acoustical ceilings, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $579,100. Omega Floors for flooring, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $207,000. Back Studios Incorporated for theater stage equipment for an amount not to exceed $386,129. Irwin Seating Company for fixed auditorium seating for an amount not to exceed $238,457. SD Mechanical Services Incorporated for mechanical, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $1,625,389. EL Electrical Contracting for electrical, including bid alternate A1 for locker room renovations for an amount not to exceed $1,696,750. Advanced Lighting and Sound for performance audio and video systems for an amount not to exceed $640,000. Porter's Brothers Trucking and Excavating for site work for an amount not to exceed $1,886,460. TG Crees LLC for an asphalt for a total amount not to exceed $161,500. And Aztec Asphalt for a total amount not to exceed $485,300 for a grand total award amount not to exceed $10,167,554. I was just thinking our auditors will be so pleased with us.
Yes.
When we look back, it will be right, and we don't
That's
need
right.
it. So, Donna, you're welcome.
Okay, so we have a motion. I'll support. Any discussion on this motion?
I want to read it again.
Okay, hearing none, Mrs. McKim.
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar.
Aye.
Dr. Watson.
Aye.
Mr. Lipka.
Aye.
Dr. Novak.
Aye.
Ms. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, that concludes action items. So we will head into our board member topics this evening. So anybody have any topics?
Of course I do. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to our theater group who just put on the amazing musical Matilda and the partnership with Inlay City. I thought that was just phenomenal. I did have some issues finding the correct building, and we walked through the whole thing and had to bang on a door and get in, but I'm hoping when we do ours, our signage is a little bit better. And also, I want to wish the varsity wrestling team good luck. Their season began tonight. They are at Clarkston. Our Colt team member, Joe Wood, is there because he is the varsity coach. And just good luck to all of those athletes. We have a girls and a boys team, and it's phenomenal to see how much wrestling has engaged so many of our students. Our girls are doing it too, and you know they get their own tournament usually every Saturday, and it's just wonderful to have these different things available to our kids to keep them engaged, to keep them in school, because we all know that sometimes sports or all of our extracurricular activities are really what keeps a lot of the kids in school, and whatever we can offer to keep them here, and maybe they'll thrive. So we're just happy that we're able to provide that for the kids. So that's all I have at this time.
Anyone else?
This one that goes up this game. That's the game.
Okay. I have something tonight. Unfortunately, our board member Jamie Hofer couldn't be with us this evening. Sometimes your priority is being a parent, because we all know we're parents up here. So her priority tonight was being a parent. She had quite an honor with her daughter to celebrate. So we did not want to go without recognizing her and all of her dedication that she's given to this board. As everyone knows, this is at the end of this year. Jamie will be leaving us on our board. And then we have a new board member, John Van Wagner, joining us in January. So I just wanted to, she's been such an asset to our team. I didn't want it to go unrecognized what valuable being on this board is. It's tough work. We have lots of things that we discuss and decide and move forward for opportunities for our kids in our district. And you know, Jamie's heart was always there. From being a teacher in our district to then being on our board, her passion was there every day, helping connect groups together to do even more for our kids. So of course, we have this beautiful plaque for her, an appreciation for all of her service. So we'll make sure that we do something special for her in person and make sure she gets this. But I didn't want the evening to go without recognizing her this evening, so just wanted to put that and appreciate her for all of her hard work. So. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Walker.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the folks that came to speak this evening. It's not easy getting up in front of a board and expressing the concern. We also know that the name on the front of this desk here says the Peer Community Schools, and the community is all of us. Right? It's an interaction. It is a partnership. And although there is the ultimate decision-making authority that rests with the people at this table, leaders, good decision makers, make an effort, a legitimate effort, to engage people, to hear about what we're doing well and where we can improve. And I've been the superintendent of the district for 14 years. Would never claim to say that board presidents that reside now or came before summer, or board members that sat in these chairs, made every decision perfectly, have arrived at every final destination without flaw or without error. The one thing that I really appreciate about the board and our leadership team is that it believes in legitimate community involvement. Now, you may not agree with every decision, but please trust that when we do host community forum discussions like the one we're going to have on December 11th at 6 p.m. at the Crampton site, home of our Lapeer virtual program, that's located at 1220 Lake Nipissing Road, that we are there to engage in legitimate discourse and to hear concerns. We're also very often going to defend our position, and it could be a lively conversation, and that's okay. That's what living in our republic is all about, engaging in lively discussion. We may have philosophical differences. That's okay too. But and some of you may be very new to interacting with us, this board here, myself personally, but I can tell you that if it is your first time and you have not had the opportunity to be a part of these larger community forums and questions and answers, I can assure you that input from our community is not only heard and processed, but it changes our minds sometimes. And I'm going to give you one really big example. So when we went through the high school merger, it was more than just closing Lapeer West High School and creating Lapeer High at the East Campus. We had an entire district restructuring process to go through. Grade level changes at Rowan Warner, Zemmer, the high school buildings. There wasn't a building that wasn't impacted by that. Prior to that merger, and after it, the closure of 3 elementary schools in my time here as superintendent, which means what? Changing district boundaries, transportation schedules. One day you're in Maple Grove, the next day you're at Murphy. Trust me, that's major change and upheaval. So I've had the fortunate opportunity to stand in front of many community forums in my 14 years as your superintendent and make many, many important decisions. One of those decisions was the grade level configuration of Rowan Warner and Zemmer. When we went down to one high school, we had a decision to make about, were we going to have Rowan Warner and Zemmer be 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders and take all the 6th through 9th graders in the district, divide them in half, and put half in RW and half in Zemmer. That was my brilliant idea. And that was the idea that I took to the community. I put a lot of time into it, our leadership team. The board supported it. We went to a community forum with a couple hundred people. And guess what happened to that idea? It was not well received. Let's just say that, because what do Rowan Warner and Zemmer look like? Right? 6, 7, and an 8, 9. That configuration came out of a parent committee community forum. And I distinctly remember reconvening when we had made our final decision, and I had a couple parents in the front row, many of whom were not big fans of yours truly, and they had this look on their face like waiting for me to just say that the final decision was my original plan. And I was pleasantly surprised at the reaction, which was their jaws dropped when they realized that we actually did hear them and did listen and make a change. Okay, that's one big example, right? This is not a group of people. Leadership teams, our building principals, our teachers, and this board that just says, we're smart, you're not, we have more information, we're sitting here behind this desk, we know what's best, shut up and deal with it. It's not how we operate. People that are up here, many of whom have current students or recent graduates in this district, I have family in this district, we are you. We're just looking at each other from a different vantage point. We care about these schools. We care about these kids. Our kids went here. Our grandchildren go or have gone here. Many former Lapeer graduates sitting at this table. Generational connection to this community. So whether the issue is student safety in the Raptor system, or the issues that are happening in our schools with bullying or other issues that our kids contend with every day, these are challenges that these people take to heart. We may not execute them perfectly every time, but God willing, with your help and support, we can model for our kids how good, willing adults, well-meaning adults, model good decision-making. How well-meaning adults in the community come together to arrive at a common solution. And it's okay to disagree. We may have philosophical disagreements. That's okay. One of the things that I'm going to commit to, though, right now is, I think, as I have been investigating some of these issues that have been brought to my attention from our community, some of these concerns, I've been talking to students, talking to many parents, talking to our staff, we may have some areas to improve as it relates to some customer service issues. And that is a concern for me as the head of the organization, that we do have parents and kids walking away from interaction with their staff less than satisfied with how they were treated. That really can't happen. And my commitment to you as a community is to address that head on and very directly. But also keep in mind, this is a very large organization. You recognize that us and the hospital are the two largest employers in the entire county. We have literally, several hundred employees, several thousand students, several thousand more parents that are looking at what we do every day. Millions of human interactions every day. We're bumping into each other. It's chaos sometimes. And when humans bump into each other, it's inevitable there's going to be disagreement. There's going to be conflict. And one of the things that I've been sharing, this is the last thing I'll say, and this is long-winded, I apologize for that, but this is important to us. When I first started in this business almost 30 years ago, we didn't really have the internet. We didn't have student cell phones. You realize the same computing power that put a man on the moon is sitting in the pockets of 12-year-olds? That's both a blessing and a curse. Because the power of this and what mankind in our system has been able to produce is really, truly remarkable. Really, truly remarkable. But it's also very, very scary. And it's complicated. The job of the American educator, to a degree, it's really hard to define. That we don't have, as adults, we like to think we control, we influence, but there's so many things that are impacting the lives of our young people in a negative way. They're getting in through these windows that we just simply can't control. And even as well-meaning parents, despite your best efforts, you can't control it. And that is a tough feeling as an adult, a loss of control, especially over our young children who we're trying to protect and keep innocent. It's a really hard reality when our kids get slammed in the face with the hard realities of the world and the meanness of people, and they can't ever get away from it. Because this thing follows them, and it's a wormhole in many ways into the deep, dark recesses of their psyche, and it's very, very chilling, the impact of that. So why the reason I say that is not to make an excuse, because adults have to do a couple things when you're solving a complex problem. You have to identify variables, right? Good, bad, and in the middle. Not as an excuse not to act, but just to say, this is the landscape. These are the things that we have to contend with. How might we go about dealing with it? How is it different from our own personal experience as a student some 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? And then what are my kids telling me about the experience they're having today in 2024? Because I'm going to tell you something, you might not like this. It's a hell of a lot harder to be a kid today than it was when we were kids. So anybody that tells you, oh, I was 16 once, I know what you're going through, you don't. You don't know what our kids are going through. And to the same degree, the management of school districts, whether it's the security protocols they have to put in place, were not necessary 30 years ago. They were not. And so, agree or disagree with some of those generic statements, I only say that to say the landscape in which we currently find ourselves is markedly different than the ones our own personal experience may inform us as we make decisions as adults navigating the world today. So with that in mind, come to the forums. Come well-intentioned, come with your concerns, give it to us, we're ready to listen, right? And then let's figure out how we make it better moving forward. Because I'm telling you what right now, we cannot do it without you. If we think we're going to make an improved landscape for our kids on opposite sides of any of these issues, holy cow, we're both doing it wrong. We're not the enemy, you're not the enemy, your criticism doesn't mean you don't support us. Our making a different decision than what you might think doesn't mean we don't listen. Two things can be true at once. And then there will be a rare occasion or two where what you want is what we want and everybody's happy. I'm still searching for that. It's right around the corner, but with that, I think we stand, if we come at these issues with that frame of mind, I truly believe we can make some major and significant difference in the lives of our kids. Because I'm telling you right now, I don't not want you to be a part of it. I just want you to come at it from the position of, let's develop a solution, let's not find blame. And I'll do the same thing on behalf of our organization when we come to you. Fair? I yield back the balance of my time to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Superintendent Wondry. With that, I will take a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Support.
Okay. Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVar?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Luca?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Mullins says aye. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
This person.
Yeah.